Good morning. Welcome back. There's been a lot that's gone on since last week. Very eventful week. I'll start by telling you that too, because I know a lot of people already know about it. And if you first time you've ever been here, my name is Briggs. I am the voice and creator of World According to Briggs. You hear my voice all the time. You probably don't see my face too often. But as you can probably tell, if this is your first time here, I'm an older YouTuber. I'm not in my 20s, not in my 30s. I'm actually in my 50s. And it's kind of a rarity in this industry to be this old. You know, I mean, I feel young, sort of, till last week, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But a majority of YouTube people that have a channel over 100 or over 1 million subscribers are in their 20s or their teens in some cases. There's, a handful, I'm sure, that are in their 30s and fewer that are in their 40s, and here I am in my 50s. I do know there's a couple that I follow that have over 100,000 subscribers, and they're in like mid 70s or 60s, something like that. Anyway, so definitely not the oldest, but I'm definitely not a younger person. So in case you're ever wondering, how does this guy have a chance to travel this much? My travels have been over decades. So speaking of that, being older, you run into different problems. I ran into a problem last weekend. I think it was building for a couple weeks because there were signs that I just wasn't picking up on. But last weekend I had a stroke. It was a mild stroke, so not like, everything's working right. I am a little cloudy in the brain. Normally I try and do these videos with very little cuts. I don't want to do any cuts, but sometimes because the weather, I end up doing this a lot. Ready? I'm going to do it. It's gross. Try and clear my nose. It's kind of gross, but sometimes, we're all human. So I'll cut those out. But because I've got like this brain fog thing going on, and I know I'm going to end up having to edit some stuff out. But you're probably thinking, well, if you're not feeling good, why are you doing this? This makes me happy. This is what I do. I love doing this. Of all the videos I make, this is my favorite thing to do. Even though it doesn't get that many views, I am getting a ton of subscribers with it. That's weird. So let's say a normal video over the course of a week, I'll be lucky if a new video, let's say the average video will get me maybe 100 subscribers by the end of the week. Now, that's not all I'm getting. I'm getting from other videos too throughout the week. And I usually end up at the end of the month with about 800 new subscribers. Each one of these videos that I've done, so this is number 3, I believe. Yeah, that's number 3. The other 2 got like 400 new subscribers for each. Actually, the first one I think got 700. So we got 700 and 400. So we're doing pretty good. Basically, we've got almost a couple months worth of subscribers on 2 videos. So that's good. Building our community. And this is what it is, a community. So I had a stroke, and I had to spend a couple days in the hospital, which sucked. And I got out Thursday. So, it is what it is. And now as I'm learning about these strokes, I realize that now I'll probably have another one eventually. So I got to start living my life a little bit different. I don't think I'm going to be traveling much without someone, my wife or a friend or something like that, at least till I feel better about the situation. Normally I travel a lot on my own. You'll find me wandering the streets of Kansas City sometime, and I'll just be there with a camera and wandering around, talking to people sometimes. So, there's limitations now. And I've always traveled. I was planning on doing a train trip the first week of November. No one can go with me, and I don't want to end up stroking out on a train and not have anyone there with me. So, it's weird when you're someone like me who thought I was indestructible till I was about 40, and now I'm realizing that, I wouldn't say the end is near, but I'm on the down cycle of life. It's weird that you have to worry about things like that. Never thought I would. But yeah, I was supposed to do this train trip, and now no train trip. Maybe I'll see if someone will go with me. Who knows? Yeah, but for all of those of you who reached out to me to check on me and see how I was doing, I really appreciate that. I really do. It's very kind of you. But I'm fine. Like I said, just a little fogginess. My limbs are all working right. My speech is okay. That's all good, and that's what is required. I need to talk. I need to be able to talk to make a living. So we're good. Now, that's another thing. I released 2 videos, Monday and Wednesday, that weren't the best. Friday was one we put some serious effort into. I have, probably about 5 or 6 videos that I called them emergency videos. Basically, the YouTube algorithm is relentless. You have to keep uploading. You have to have a schedule, and you have to keep uploading. Some people say that's not a thing. It's a thing. Every time I've missed a day or missed a couple days, one time I missed a week, you could just see my views went down, and it took me months to get them to start coming up again. Yeah, that was brutal. So if you ever want to start YouTube and you start making money out of it and you want to make a career or at least a living off it, it's consistent. Now, you can put some away in case of emergency or in case of a trip. So the 2 I put up Monday and Wednesday weren't my best work. Basically, they're videos we made a few months back that we didn't like them, so we shelved them, just in case we ever needed them. They weren't our best work, and I apologize for that, but it's one of those things where you got to play the algorithm. Someone's going to work. Love that. Every morning. So the train trip got me thinking, because I was in the hospital and I was thinking about how I won't be able to do the train trip. Chamomile tea tonight. There it is. Chamomile tea tonight. So, doing something a little tonight, this morning. It's pretty good, actually. While I was thinking about the train, I remembered someone that I talked to on my first train ride ever. This is in the early 90s, still in the military. And I took a train from Los Angeles up to Portland, Oregon to visit my friend. And it was, nowadays I like to travel on a train and I like to get the room. And I'll talk to people in the viewing car. They have like this viewing car, it's all glass, so you get to see the sights. I mean, you have a window in your room, but sometimes you just want to go up to this, it's like a lounge. So you go up to the lounge and talk to people, or in Amtrak trains, they sit you down with other people. You don't get to just get your own booth. You come in, you say, I'm one person, they'll find you a table with 3 other people and you just sit down with them and start eating. That's how it is. And I think in a way it's kind of nice. It gets you to meet people, and what I do, that's what I'm usually looking for. So I meet and talk to people during those meals and in the lounge car every time I take cruise. Well, long before YouTube was even a thing and I ever thought I was going to do that, I didn't have no money back in 1991. So I took the coach seats. Well, which was good because I was lucky enough to sit next to a very interesting woman named Estelle. And another thing you should know about me, if we ever have a conversation, I'm going to remember it, especially if it's interesting. I mean, I remember things I said from decades ago to people, and what sucks is if I'm out having a good time and maybe a couple more drinks, I say some stupid crap. And then I got to relive that in my brain forever. So yeah, that's kind of rough. But the good thing is, I remember these conversations with people. And I remember Estelle very well. She was an older woman. I don't want to guess, but, well, I know she was born in 1920. So in 1920, and this was 91. So, she was 71 years old at the time. And she was a wonderful lady. We talked the whole trip. Had lunch together. It was nice. She was a very pleasant lady. She was a widow. And she was taking the train up to Seattle. I was going to Portland. She was going to Seattle to visit her son. But we got talking, and she didn't find her America. Well, she did later on in life, but she was forced to find a new America to her. She was born in Brooklyn in around 1920. Pretty sure it said 20, maybe 21. But in 1932, her mom shipped her off. Her mom was broke. Her dad was some kind of fisherman or worked as a cargo ship guy, but he just disappeared. They never saw him again. So the mom was struggling, Great Depression and all that, and she had 3 kids that she couldn't provide for. Well, they had a program called Orphan Trains. It had some fancy term to it. But back in the Great Depression and then in World War II a little bit, there was other programs. I think that's what she was on. She called it the Orphan Train. Later on, I researched it and found out, no, that had ended in 1929. So she said that happened around 1932 during the Great Depression, which I think her dates were a little mixed up. But, this is, we're talking this happened 60 years or more to her. But she was very detailed about it. So her mom sent the kids off on some kind of program which would take them to Iowa or one of the Midwestern states, basically farmland. Families were essentially adopting them or foster care type thing. The kids from New York City, because they had a ton of orphans after World War I and just whatever reason later on the Great Depression. And, of course, back in the old days, tons of parents and people were dying. Hold on one second. We're dying in factory things and, factory fires, machines, all that stuff. A lot of kids got orphaned in New York City back in the day. If you ever want to do some research, look that up, and you'll see why we have organizations like OSHA, workplace safety programs and all that. Tons of people died that didn't have to because whoever owned their company was greedy, Anyway. So she was sent off. Now, I researched the orphan trains, and they were basically taking these kids off the streets in New York City who were literally orphans, and they would put them on a train to different towns throughout the Midwest. Now, these things were, dehumanizing because the kids would be pulled off the train, and basically families and farmers, for the most part, would go size them up like their cattle. And they'd check if they're big, strong, can they do anything, stuff like that. And if no one picked you back on the train, you went to another town. I did find out some of those kids were, that didn't get picked, maybe they were too small or whatever, they just dropped them off in like Chicago or something like that. Didn't get them back to New York, nothing like that. It's like, okay, maybe they'll do better in Chicago or something. I don't know. It was a horrible time and a horrible thing to do, but they were living on the streets and basically doing whatever they could to survive. And, so they had to do something. This is the best solution they can get. I mean, the Great Depression, the country wasn't doing good. So a lot of these farmers probably looked at it as, great, I'll take some free labor. I just got to feed them. Perfect. Send them to school? Absolutely. Anyway, Estelle got picked up by a family, or selected, prior to her leaving New York. So she didn't have to go through the train thing. I remember saying that. They had set it all up. She was put on a train with her two brothers. Her two brothers were dropped off at other places, and she ended up in this town in Iowa. That, I don't remember what she told me, but it had a lot of farms. It was a farm town. And this family picked her up. They're very nice. But she said they just treated her with a mild neglect. She was just the help. She cleaned up around the house and fed pigs, stuff like that. She said they didn't work her terrible or anything like that. She said it was nice. She had two new brothers that this family had had before. And she got a little emotional, but I remember her kind of welling up. The parents kind of just ignored her for the most part. She did her work, she ate, she went to school and all that. She said those two boys were terribly protective of her. Even when they went to school, the other kids didn't like her. They, there was a few of these kids, I guess, around the town that went to school, and they were just ostracized. Well, her two brothers made sure she got no grief. She said by the time she was, towards the end of high school, she was accepted by everyone. Well, when high school was over, still at the farm, I guess, and the brothers had gone to World War II or whatever they'd done. I'm editorializing that right there. I'm imagining they went to World War II because about that time, that's where all the young men were going. And she ran away. She ran away from the farm. She said they were expecting her to stay there forever. They wouldn't let her have boys. She wasn't allowed to talk to boys, stuff like that. So she saw no future there. She was going to end up working for these people and as a, servant somewhat, and never fulfill her life ambitions or whatever, which she pretty much had none, from what I understand, if I remember correctly. So Estelle ran away, and she had met another man and woman who were crossing the country, and they took her with them. She said they were nice to her. There was nothing weird, nothing strange. They were just pleasant people. She said a little bit Bible-ish, but that's how she put it, Bible-ish. I'll remember that the rest of my life. I've used that term since then, Bible-ish. But they took her all the way to San Diego. In San Diego, she got a job in a kitchen at some kind of resort or hotel. And then she got a job as a cook or something like that to do in the kitchen help, I think. At she called it the Veterans Administration, but it's now called the Veterans Administration. It was called the Veterans Bureau. I just think she got it wrong. But I think it was only a couple of years after it changed to the Veterans Administration. Anyway, that's not here nor there. But so she worked there, and she met a man there who had gotten back from World War II, and he was going through some process there, and they started talking, and then he kept showing up, and little boyfriend-girlfriend thing happened, she said, and he was very pleasant to her. His name was Jack, which his name was John, but Jack for short. As Ian Bagg says, I don't know how that's short, but it's an Irish thing, I don't know. I have an Uncle John that's actually a Jack. Well, he's passed away now, but still. So Estelle and Jack continued to live there. I believe, I want to say he was in the Navy, but I think he was in the Marines. He got out of the Marines, and they got married. And she, at the time, I forget how old she was, but she was young 20s. And they got married, and they moved right up from San Diego to a place that's behind Carlsbad. I don't know if it was called this at the time, but now it's the town of Vista. She had told me that when we were on the train. Now she lives in Vista, but when they bought their house there, it wasn't Vista. So, I don't know. So Vista's a pretty nice neighborhood now. It's a nice little city. I don't think it's a city. It's like a county area, like census designated area. But it's a nice place now. A friend of mine I went to high school with, his dad owned a big construction company. They built tons of the houses down Vista. But yeah, so they lived in Vista, and they had a good life. And I guess around it was when I graduated high school, so it was around 1885. I remember that. Jack had passed away. Oddly enough, he had a couple strokes, then he had a heart attack, and he died. So she had been widowed. They'd had 3 boys. He died in a car accident, I think. I remember one of her sons had passed away when he was like 17. And the other 2 one was in Seattle, and the other one was still down in San Diego. She had I guess the son in Seattle didn't know when to quit because they had like 6 kids. So she had 6 grandkids up there from one son, and the other son, I don't think he had any. I don't remember her saying anything about that. So she was going up there, and her life was these grandchildren, and she took that train all the time, as often as she could, she said. She said she's got to get her other son to watch her dog. I remember this. But if the train would let her bring her dogs, she'd be going up every weekend probably. So it was really interesting talking to this woman, and she had found her America by accident or by force in Iowa. And things changed. So she had to find a new America, which meant running away. And for a young girl who was probably 17 or 18 years old, to cross the country from Iowa to San Diego, I think it's amazing. I mean, when I was 17, I wasn't going to do anything. Like, I joined the military. That was about the craziest thing I did, and that was at 18. But I couldn't imagine hitchhiking across the country, meeting strangers, especially a young lady. It's one thing if you're a young man. A young lady by herself, these days, that's a recipe for some bad things to happen to you. So Estelle was really, really interesting. And one thing I liked about her is you could just, sometimes you just get those motherly things, and you get those fatherly things. If you ever have kids, you'll see sometimes you just it slips into your mode. It slips into your lifestyle. But every time I went to sleep on the train, we were sitting in coach. She's all, I'll watch your stuff, honey. Go ahead and get some sleep. And she did every time. She stayed awake if I was sleeping. She was reading a book, and I think she was coloring too at the time, a little coloring book. But she read and did her coloring book. Not the stereotypical pull out the yarn and start making a sweater. She was doing a coloring book, and it was a really pleasant trip. I was sad to see her go. Now, this is back in the days when you didn't have a cell phone. I mean, I think cell phones had just started coming out, and they were probably the brick ones at the time. Sorry, I'll block that out. But, I probably wanted to stay in contact with her, but, it's just weird. How about I get your number? I'll call you sometimes. They'll check up on you. That would just be weird. So I gave her a hug. She gave me a hug, said goodbye. And that was one of the best train trips I ever had. Now, it's not the strangest train trip I've ever had. One time I took a train. I'll just tell you this one real quick. It's kind of bleeding into one of them. But I was taking a train, and during breakfast or lunch or something like that, there was a young lady on there with 2 kids, and they were like toddlers. And we had breakfast together, and it was a nightmare. She was staying in coach and all this, and eventually I asked the conductor, I'm all, are there any rooms available you can give to her? And he goes, well, we can't give them, get in a lot of trouble for that. And I'm all, what if I pay for one for the rest of the trip for her or whatever? Which I think it was overnight was all that was left, and I remember, I think it was like $400, but I just felt so bad for this woman. She's up in coach with these 2 toddlers, and it's a nightmare. You could tell she was at the end of her rope. And she was on her way, basically for a new life. She had some cousins or something in North Dakota. And I think when I got that for her, we were in Idaho or something. But going across on the Empire Builder. So she was, I just felt so bad for that girl. But she was finding her America, her new America. She left Seattle, and she was going to North Dakota. Her cousin had a job for her and a couple rooms at a house that she owned that she can stay in with the kids, and she had a job, all that stuff. And I guess she was just struggling. And I get the feeling, she didn't get into it, but I get the feeling the father of the 2 kids had just bailed on her pretty much. And so she was going through a rough time. And I was really happy I could do that. And the conductor, he's like, yeah, do you know her? I'm like, no. And so I did ask him not to tell her who did that for her, because I didn't want her to feel like, I'm an older guy and she was probably 25. I didn't want her to think that's something weird or creepy. That just, if someone helps you out that much out of nowhere, instantly these days you think, oh, what's this all about? What's he want? No, I didn't want anything from her. I'm a married man, and besides that, I've gotten to that age where even if I was single, there's no way I would even date anyone in their 30s. That just seems weird. That's a child to me almost, If I got kids your age, there's no way. It's, it's almost like I look at them like you'd look at a kindergartner. They're a child. It's just how I am. But so she got the train or she got the room, and I'm sure she had a great time the rest of the trip. I saw the kids running up and down the little hallway there a few times. Probably, I don't know, they had no, I don't think they had a bathroom in their room. Got a little one, the roomette. So yeah, they were probably just going to the bathroom back and forth, which I'm sure was a treat for all the other people that were riding the train with her. But, so yeah, Estelle was a very interesting person. I was happy to meet her, and I'm sure, 70, that was 91, 2000, yeah, she's long dead, I'm sure. That's too bad, though. I don't know, if your kids ever see this, or if her kids ever see this, I hung out with your mom on a train. You probably have 6 kids and you live in Seattle probably. So reach out to me if you ever see this. I'd love to hear how the rest of your mom's life was. That would be very interesting to me. Maybe I'll follow up on this video with you guys. I don't know. But yeah, that's it. So I had a stroke. I'm better. met Estelle, bought a girl a hotel room, bought a girl a cabin, what is it? Roomette on a train, so she didn't go crazy. And yeah, that's this week's episode. I'm going to see you next week. We'll do this again. I have a very interesting one next week. And I do apologize for all the ums and the little delays. Like I said, I'm not totally there, but I appreciate the chance to talk to you guys and do this video. We'll see you next Sunday. I got some really good videos coming up this week to kind of make up for what happened last week, because those videos weren't that good. If you wanna help me out, watch Monday or Wednesday's video and leave a comment. Give it a thumbs up, because those ones tanked. Fridays didn't do great either, but it's a long video. So one last thing before I go. In the world of YouTube right now, the longer the video is, the better it's going to be, because YouTube is really focused on how long do you stay on the app? How long do you stay watching a video? So if I make a 30-minute video, let's say I make a 15-minute video, my time that you're going to watch it is like, the average is like 8 minutes. The average person watches it 8 minutes. But if I do a 30-minute one, or that one the other day, 50-minute one, I think I looked at the 50-minute one, and it was like 25 minutes was the average, which is outstanding. This means they'll continue to push it. Even though it doesn't have enough views, they'll just continue to push it. All right, guys, that's today's show. Thank you again. I'll see you next week.